junior and senior in the 1 year.
All right.
There were no 21 under football, underage football that time. But to come back to the
story on the soccer.
Soccer. No, see, the war ended in 45. So the English league clubs reviving their soccer.
Yeah.
But they ran into a big problem.
There was no soccer then during the war in England?
No soccer during the war.
Right.
But they ran into a very big problem, a serious problem. They ran short of players. There were a lot of them killed or wounded, and some of them they did survive, weren't able to play football.
There was one, talking about soccer in the war, there was a famous goalie came to Manchester City, Bert Troutman. That's right. But go on ahead anyway about the...
So they appointed various scouts in Ireland to go around underage colleges and that there to see was there any prospect getting players there. So my parents were approached, and by 3 clubs. So all the clubs were short. That was first club was Derby County, West Bromwich Albion, and Arsenal. And they were going to continue our education in school and further if we wanted to do further education, blah blah blah. But no, my parents refused.
Right.
But we got the option of it.
Ah, well, fair enough. Well, then what Frank told me was true then.
That's true.
Fair play to you. Tommy, I know that because I talked to you before, you mentioned about Ellen Brady's field.
Yeah.
And practicing with the Brennans, you know.
Yeah.
And I got the impression that you had a high regard for the Brennans and for the fact that that facility was more or less sort of left with the young lads, you know.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm a bit older than Sean Haggerty. I don't remember, must be 3 years or 4 anyway, I suppose. But there was nothing in the village. We had no club, with no football, no games of anything, you know. And the only where you could get a game was down at Brennan's. Brennan's, they never got recognition for what they'd done, because on the late 30s, after Scotstown winning in 33, football seemed to die a bit, Scotstown.
Right.
Gaelic football did anyway.
Wasn't there a kind of a rival club or something started up?
Well, there was a soccer club, Black Packie Murray, Killatin.
Right.
Started soccer.
Yeah.
And...
but we won't go back to 33 and really go.
And a lot of those players that played in 33 played on that soccer team.
We'll go back
we had nothing in Scotstown, absolutely nothing now. And all we had was go down to Brennan's.
Right.
If we had a little ball in the green, pot begging, as Sean would tell you, you'd be chased off it, or he'd tell you he was ringing the super.
Right.
But Brennan's never got true recognition. I always thought so, because it was them encourage all the young fellas, and we all went down. And Sean had done the same in his time too. Well, things had improved a little bit when he came along. But I remember Sonny Campbell, Robin Bannon, Carl Cassidy, Packie Caulfield. That's where we went.
Right.
And they used to organise practice games that show you how to kick a ball, take a drop kick, catch a ball, and they organised little matches.
Right. There was many Brennans. You had
4.
Charlie, would that be right?
Charlie, yes, he was the eldest, yeah.
And
the doctor.
And I remember Frank Sherry telling me about Charlie Brennan having a powerful shot, you know.
Well, he was telling you no lie, because no one, when we would practice down at Ellen Brady's, nobody, and I mean nobody, would stand in between the goalposts if Charlie Brennan wasn't hitting the ball from outside the 35-yard mark. Because if that ball hit you, especially people at our age at that time, you were in the next world.
Right. Then you had Gerry Brennan as well.
Oh, you had. Well, there were 2 different types of footballers. Gerry was a very skillful footballer. You don't get a Gerry Brennan every day of the week. Gerry had 2 lovely feet, kick with right foot or left foot, he could take frees with either feet, he could go hand to toe. He has done like some going 40, 50, 60 yards hand to toe, not even having to take a breather. He had a great footballing brain. He was a great man to get into an open spot to take a pass I mean, I mean it not just for the sake of getting a pass, for to get a scoring pass that he would score from. No, I would put Gerry Brennan very high, give him very high. Might be in the top 10 players in my estimation that ever the club ever had.
Now, the Brennans, there's none of them around any longer, Tommy, but they were cousins, they had cousins.
The O'Neills, Unroe and Brendan O'Neill, who I played along with. They're be first cousins.
Where does the cousinship come in there?
Well, Brendan's father was Joe O'Neill, a teacher.
Right.
Died when the kids were very small, died very young age. And Brennan's mother would be brother and sister.
Joe O'Neill, he lived around, I think, in Drumbeer that time.
He lived in Drumbeer as well, that's right, when he died,
Tommy, talking to you now and talking to the rest of the, let's say, the club veterans, you know, we can't ignore the 58-62 period, you know, or 61, because I think Shawnee Hegarty reckoned that you were playing your best football at the time, you know. Now, there's more than one man on any team, you know.
Yeah, one swallow doesn't make a summer, right? No. The 60 team, for instance, the 60 was the first champion. The 50s, they won the World Cup or the championship.
Yes.
We played two, so we played them in the World Cup, so we should have beat them in that too, but we didn't. We were too cocky, I suppose.
Which one was that, Tommy?
We were in the final of the World that year that we won the championship, junior championship.
Oh, that was 58.
You know, you weren't regraded then. You went down junior if you wanted to, you went up senior if you wanted to. Whatever you affiliated.
Yeah.
There was no rules and regulations.
So, Tome had already beaten you that year, is that right?
Tome beat us took us by surprise, beat us in the World Cup, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But in 60, the first championship, I always maintained the winning of that game was not the final.
Right.
But the first round. And people say, why the first round? See, we went up to fulfil a fixture. Now, Jimmy Sherry and Sean Hegarty, two of my comrades of that day, were playing that day, and I'm sure they'll agree with me here. Most games we went up to fulfil a fixture. But luck would have it again. As Liam go back to Liam's word luck, and it's very true. We had a couple of young people on the team that day. We had a young lad called Matt McCrudden who was down in, I don't know why he was in Sherry's factory. No, he was only doing his leaving. What are you talking about? He's doing his leaving, and he didn't want to get injured. So Lord, the players, the parents had known he was playing at all, there'd have been holy war. So Matt was playing centre field, and we got an endless supply of ball with Oliver Fellamy, who it was an odd kind of a lad. One day he'd come out and play, and another day he wouldn't come out at all. But he came out that day. He had a super game on John Davy, and we had a guard called Eddie Earl played on the right corner, and he was a good player, but he could match Dunamine with their own type of football, and the harder Eddie got it, the better he got it, the better he played.
Well, that was the first round.
But why I say so much emphasis in the first round? Matt McCrudden gives such a supply of ball in. I can't tell me when Scotstown, not in my time, from 60 until I finished, I got the second 64. But in those 4 years, I have never seen a Scotstown team coming out and scoring 6 goals. I think I don't know how many points there was. Maybe Jimmy or Pat would know what. But the score was 6 goals or something. And that was because, as my grandmother could have scored some of the goals. They were getting such a supply of ball. And that was coming chiefly from Matt McCrudden on the centre field and Oliver on the 40.
All right, so that was the first round. And then would I be right in saying, I think I'm right in saying that Clontibret was the second round, or the semi-final, I suppose you could call it.
Oh, I don't know. But yes, something funny happened in Clontibret. I know Sean Hegarty maybe would know more about this than me, but we were winning by 2 goals or maybe 7 points at one stage, but for some unknown reason, Sweeney let in a couple of soft ones, I don't know. People said that there was friction between some of the players at that end of the field. I don't know how true or what false that is. But, no, a funny thing happened at that game, believe it or not. A man who wasn't even in Ireland at the time, he was over in Ireland. He was over here to do an interview for a job he was getting in Monaghan Town. And he came over, he was on the sideline, he came in to me and he says, why don't you go out midfield? There was a bit 10 minutes left to
And
play.
who was this, by the way?
This fellow was a fellow called Packie Caulfield in Monaghan.
He was a clubman for...
He was over in Luton or in England, and he came over here to do the interview to get a position as a male nurse in St Avnet's. And he was standing, and he came into me where I was standing full forward, and he says, will you go out the field there to say, because the no ball will come into you. I said, I'll go out anyway. And I went out, and his luck had it there again. Sean Woods kicked the ball. We beat by 2 points at this stage. Sean Woods kicked the ball out. I caught it and put it in over the bar. He took the second kick out. I caught it again. Went 5 or 6 yards, or maybe not yards, maybe 2 or 3 yards with hand to toe, looking for some player to give the ball to. Now, in front of me, I saw Peter Sherry. But I didn't think Peter was in a good enough scoring position. I was expecting some of the wingmen, either Omro or Brendan, to be coming by, or Pat Sherry. One of those three should have been coming on my right, and they weren't. And so I had no option, because if I held the ball any longer, I would have fouled it. So I passed the ball to Peter Sherry. And Peter scored that famous goal.